Good morning. I got a phone call from Germany the other day. A magazine is interviewing lots of people who teach, and they wanted me to say in one sentence what it is I teach. I loved this. I thought this was a great challenge. Really, I could have said it in one word, but first you have to understand what I teach to understand that word. So basically what I said is a long sentence. Lots of semicolons. Was that you are never who you think you are. You are never who you think you are. However, who you are is never separate from who you think you are. Pretty good, huh? So our coming together like this in retreat is, of course, to support the recognition of who you are. That while it is never who you think you are, never, it is always present. It's always here, always has been. As you know, the thoughts of who you are have changed and will change. But who you are is changeless. It's here now, it's always been here. So in our coming together in retreat, in a safe place, away from the usual conditionings of our lives, we have the opportunity to realize, well then, who am I? If it's always here, if I am always here, and yet I am never what I think I am, who am I? If this retreat is approached like much of life is approached, it will be useless in this realization. I mean, you'll have a nice rest and some good food and some good experiences, but it will be useless. Because the way that we are taught to approach events in our lives is to either run toward them or to run away from them. Either to capture them or to escape them. This is the activity of the mind, grasping and rejecting. So it's a strong activity of the mind. It is deeply embedded. The retreat is an opportunity to not follow the running after, not follow the running away commands of the mind. The support for that, of course, is this safe space, as safe as a space can be. The withdrawal of your usual mental activity from your usual life activity, so that you can be here, so that you can see directly what is always here, what really isn't interrupted by any circumstance, or any feeling, or any state of mind, or any thought, what is always here. The way we are conditioned to live our lives, certainly in the United States, maybe in the whole Western world, maybe in the whole world now, is staying very busy to succeed, staying very active to get the job done. And because of that, there's a great fear in rest. That if I rest, the job won't get done. I'll go to sleep. Someone will pass me. Someone will take my destiny. And this same conditioning usually shows up in retreats. if I really stop, if I really don't take or don't follow the command of the mind to reach for or to reject, then I'll fall back into my amoebic state. I'll lose all the ground I've gained from working in all the retreats I've been to. This is normal. It's not sane, but it's normal. So I invite you, I profoundly invite you to rest. Our ideas of rest have to do with some kind of exhaustion, because that's usually when we rest. We get the signal, oh my God, I have to sleep, when the body is in pain and the mind won't function, and then we fall down and die for some hours, and then we get up and we start going again, because there's energy, there's renewal. But there's a kind of rest that's out of that realm. It's a rest that is fully alert, fully energized. It's a resting while awake. So it is fine, of course, to sleep as much as you need to sleep. And maybe the first couple of days on the retreat you need to sleep a lot. It's fine. If the body needs to sleep, let it sleep, for goodness sakes. Just recognize that there is a rest that is really the peace of who you are. The home where you are. That is always here. In actuality, it's not disturbed by any activity of the mind. But because we are so conditioned to following the activity of the mind, it has gone overlooked to some degree. This retreat is so that it cannot go overlooked in any degree ever again. Then we will say a successful retreat. A retreat in truth, rather than just another attempt of the mind to grasp something or escape something. Really to grasp who you are or to escape who you are. There's the hope of who you are and there's the fear of who you are. And both of them are mind-generated, mind-created. Both of those polarities generate the activity of mind, going after the hope and running from the fear. But the stopping, simply being here, really not doing anything, yet being awake, being open, then you can see that who you have hoped you are does not touch the truth of who you are. Who you have feared you are does not touch the truth of who you are. It's at that point, that essential point, that the exploration of the truth of who you are begins and deepens. So let us use this time restfully, deeply, energetically to see. I will tell you right off that you are the light that sees light and darkness. You are the light of consciousness that sees individual consciousness and cosmic consciousness and beyond. You are the intelligence that gives rise to the intellect and recognizes itself in nothingness. You are the incomprehensible love. I know this because you are my own self. You are the self. You are all. And more. Somehow at this point in time on this planet, there is a huge mass of people who don't have to be primarily concerned with food and shelter. Obviously there must be some concern enough to take care of food and shelter, but that's not the primary concern of the life. And if it is the primary concern for this mass of people I'm speaking to, it needn't be. For our ancestors, maybe our recent ancestors, but most certainly our ancient ancestors, it had to be the primary concern, the absolute concern. And it was the source of the challenge of one's life. Food and shelter. But somehow we find ourselves at a point where there is enough food and there is enough shelter for the body that the deepest questions that our ancestors perhaps could never take even a moment to consider, the deepest questions, can be not only considered, but met fully. That one's attention, which has already been freed up, can be given to the deepest issues, the deepest questions. Usually, when one's attention is freed up from the drive of the necessity of food and shelter, the free-floating attention simply glomps onto more food, better shelter, more success, more things, more power, just because the nature of the mind and its attention is to attend to. So those of you who are here have at least discovered in some degree that the issues of your life, the issue of your fulfillment, the issue of the purpose of your life is really not about more things. I say to some degree because I know that there are some people here that that's not true of. But to you I'm saying, just listen, because there will be a point where it's true, and then these words will find a place in your heart. So I honor everything that has come before us. The toil, the challenge that gives us this privilege, because it is a privilege to consider these issues. And many people on the planet don't have this privilege. And most people who have this privilege throw it away, trivialize it, or don't even notice that in fact they don't have to be concerned all the time, every moment of every day, with food and shelter. So I salute you in this privilege. For me, about 11 years ago, I recognized that my life had been filled with privilege, which in itself was a huge recognition, since I had mostly spent my life being aware of its lack, how I didn't have what somebody else had, or what I had had and lost, or what I imagined I should have. And then there came a time in my life where I recognized my life is privileged. Now what am I doing about that, and why am I still suffering? And it was at that time that I prayed for a teacher. I had had numerous teachers come into my life for brief periods, and I had definitely benefited from all of them. But still, I was seeking ultimate fulfillment, ultimate release. And I had experienced moments of release and moments of fulfillment, but the seeking was just always shy of complete fulfillment. So I prayed for a teacher. And if you pray, as you know, your prayer will be answered, but usually not at all like you expect. Beautifully, not at all like you expect, because your expectations are based on past ideas. I met my teacher, and through his grace and his power, he revealed the source of fulfillment. And he asked me to bring this to you. Not to bring the fulfillment to you, but to bring the revelation of the source of fulfillment to you. And so this is how we meet at this precious moment in this privileged lifetime, to consider the truth of who you are. The revelation is based not on a teaching, not on a religion, not on a practice, not on a visualization, not on acquisition of any kind. It is a radical revelation, meaning at the root of the truth of who you are. It is also an eternal revelation, so it is not subject to disappearance in the future, in the past, or in the present. It is free, and so it is not bound by any idea or image or thought or feeling or state of mind or circumstance or karma or goodness or badness. The good news of this news is that the revelation is the truth of who you already are. Not who you can become, not who you can aspire to be, nothing that you could ever have lost. Who you are. Eternally who you are. Freely who you are. And can be known by yourself without a doubt. The instructions that my teacher gave me were very simple. So simple that I immediately misunderstood them. With the complexity of my sophisticated mind, I thought I knew what he was saying. And so I tried to do what he was saying. And he would just say, no, 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 no. He told me to stop searching. He told me to put aside all of my powerful techniques that I had developed to generate what it is or was I thought I wanted. I thought he meant meditate or just sit really still for a moment. But when I began to do that, he said, put that aside too. He said, for one instant in your life, just for one instant, you see how long an instant is? We think of an instant as time, but instantaneously is really out of time. So for an instantaneous moment to stop thinking who you are. Actually, this moment is always present where you are unthought. But our conditioning is to think who we are. We learn who we are from our parents and our teachers, our society, and our subculture. And then we embellish that. We add to that or we remove from that. But always there is the unthought truth of who you are. So for one instant, if attention is withdrawn from the imaging, from the thinking, which is pulled from the past to this moment, just in one instant, to be who you already are who you are, so that takes no effort. And if there is any efforting to be who you are, then you are still trying to be who you think you are, or think you should be. Is this clear? Good. Because it's so simple that I couldn't get it. He didn't use these words, he used words that were natural for him to speak. He asked me what I wanted, and I said, I want freedom. And he said, good, then stop. And it was like, stop. When I finally let the simplicity of that in, an enormous fear arose. I can't stop. If I stop, I may lose what I have gained. I may return to that neurotic 16-year-old or that miserable 7-year-old. I can't stop. I have to keep going. And he said, stop and see. Stop and see. So in the midst of fear, in the midst of the unknowable, through the grace of the answer of a prayer, the appearance of a teacher who says, who you are is freedom, who you are is fulfillment, who you think you are can never be free, who you think you are can never reach fulfillment. So stop thinking yourself and be yourself. In the midst of that, the mind has no job. And it is open to what is always open. In that moment, the mind stops to what is always stopped, what is always still. The mind may get busy again, but when there is a moment, one moment is what he said, one moment is all that is required. When there is a conscious moment of not thinking yourself and yet consciously being yourself, there is a knot that is untied. Something is loosened. Something of the tangle, of the complexity, of the image and the thought and the past and the future that has been created in the hope of getting fulfillment. Something is pulled, like the rug out from under you, or like the door that opens, or a wall that you thought to be an obstruction is revealed to be a cloud. So I invite you to this moment that is still alive here, that has never died here. I invite you consciously to recognize yourself as that which you are seeking. Simply, effortlessly, eternally. My role in your recognition is to respond to your recognition, first of all. That's primarily why we are in each other's company, is to confirm and to deepen the unspeakable recognition that is present right now. And secondarily, to meet whatever arises, to say no, couldn't be, too easy, too simple, gotta go now. I'll do that someday. I'm really happy to know that. Bye. The strategies of mind that arise from the fear that who you are cannot be known. Who you are is too big to be defined, however grandiose the definitions may be. Who you are is by your own nature too happy to exclude even unhappiness. So I invite you fully into this that comes as an offering from my teacher, from his teacher. I invite your questions, your reports, your seriousness, your playfulness. In that way we serve one another, because we are all aspects of the same self, recognizing itself as present in each aspect, and yet free of each aspect. Paradoxically, truly. A question that came up last night and comes up a lot, must have come up in your mind. Once the invitation to surrender your mind into your heart, to give your life to truth, to be true to the truth of who you are, to surrender to God, however it's phrased. Once that invitation arises in your heart, the question, but how? How do I do that? Tell me how. And then this big search begins for someone who can tell you exactly how to do that. Obviously, this is the way we are trained as animals, as primates. We learn how by our elders, or our siblings, or our culture at large, generally by imitating. That's how it's passed on. We imitate, as if that's the reality. So we imitate our parents, and then at some point we feel the deadness of that, and we rebel against that, and we find somebody else to imitate. And that feels good for a while, because it's a relief from the old, and then there's the arising of the deadness in that, and we begin a search to find something bigger to imitate. Is this familiar? It certainly happened in my life. I grew up hating my life. And so I decided that it looked very good to have a nice life, a straight life, a life of... So I became a teacher, and I married a doctor. And that felt really good. I felt very self-righteous, and I was doing the right thing, and there was a particular taste in my mouth in the morning as I got up and got it all together. And then I had a baby, and I was even more right, but I was starting to feel the weight of it. And I remember watching Woodstock on TV and going, oh my God, that's what I want to be like. That seems like a better thing. So with a lot of effort, I ended up over a period of 2 or 3 years getting my family to move to San Francisco, and we became quasi-hippies. And that felt really good. To move from Memphis, Tennessee to San Francisco felt really good. I felt like I'm free now, I'm free. Because I had thrown off the old, this life of responsibility and teaching, and now I was free. And there was a lot of pleasure in that, and it was useful to throw off the old. But after a while, the deadness and the suffering and the lie of it began to be exposed. And so then, of course, so then I decided, well, I need to have a life of responsibility. I need da-da-da-da-da-da, like that. Then, okay, the life of responsibility, I need a life of spirituality. That's what I need, real spirituality. So, in my case, I discovered Zen Buddhism and made Japan the ideal in its sense of aesthetics and its exquisite representation of the Zen moment. And then, so finally I got to Japan. They were all trying to be like us, to escape the burden of Japanese society and Zen Buddhism. There's a kind of disillusionment after a while, a weariness that sets in. And even though there's been an enrichment of the experience of life by tasting other cultures, and in each culture there's an echo of what is free in that, except maybe our culture. But now, since our culture is a mix of all cultures, you can always find an echo, at least, of what is free. I remember when I finally made my way to India and recognized that what I had loved in the hippie movement was really an imitation of what was happening in India. The food, the dress, the dance, the bedspreads. But by then I had some distrust of my capacity to imitate, and distrust of the fruits of that imitation. I understood the pleasure of it, and I understood the benefit of it. There is much that can be learned from taking on another culture. Very much. One thing you learn, that your culture is not the only culture, and that there is wisdom in every culture. And there's also a lie in every culture. And so I was disillusioned with my tendency to romanticize the other in hopes that the other would give me what I wanted. It was a very useful state to be in, and I recommend it for everyone, and I suspect that everyone here has it to at least some degree. Some recognition of the inability of imitation to deliver what is authentic, and the search within oneself for authenticity, So this was my version of it. There are many versions of it. Probably 9 at least. This, you know your version, if you're willing to look at it. And you know that the willingness to be disillusioned can be scary, because then a kind of hope is cut. And the hope is that someone or some culture or some tradition can teach me how to be true, how to be still, how to be at peace. It's actually a very precious moment. But it's terrifying to most people. And so, rather than in that moment surrendering to having no idea how, and really letting that surrender reveal that which has no how, is not in the realm of how to. It has no face or culture. It is not limited to material or immaterial, form or formless, east or west, good or bad, responsible or irresponsible. That there is no how to be who you are. There is a how to be a particular person in a particular society, from a particular family, doing a particular thing. Lots of hows. And that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. But to be who you are, there must be a surrender to knowing how to be that. There must be at least a moment of recognizing the void, the abyss, that you have no idea how to be true. And any idea about how to be true is just an idea, perhaps pointing to truth, and perhaps coming from one who has discovered truth. But as an idea, just a concept, something of the mind, holy concept, but still a concept. So in itself, not holiness, not wholeness, not authenticity of being. So the invitation that I extend to you from my teacher is to stop trying to be who you are. The conditioning of your family, of your culture, or of whatever subculture has been adopted may stay or may go. It's irrelevant. Who you are is already authentically that, wholly that. And if you will stop your attempts to try to be that, or find that, or keep that, or know that, then you discover yourself to be that in an instant. Of course, the momentum of conditioning, the conditioning to grasp another hope or reject what has been known is huge. But if you will have one moment of the willingness to absolutely and completely not know how, and to dive into that void or that fear, to discover directly that no how is needed, then this momentum is stopped in its tracks. It may reappear, or it may not. But at least there has arisen in your lifetime a moment of recognizing yourself as that which is outside the realms of the mind. Then we can speak of choice. We can speak of what can be chosen, what need not be chosen, what is relevant, what is irrelevant, what is important, what is unimportant. Before that, the conversation is abstract. It's all about feeding into, yes, but how do I? And taking the information in and sorting it and, well, that feels good, and going for that. I remember being with Papaji and dressing in Lucknow clothes, and it was fun. I loved them. They're great clothes. I even remember trying to wear them back in the States and saying, oh my God, this is absurd. They belong in India. But that's for me. That's all of you who are wearing Indian clothes, I'm not speaking about you. It was natural, you know, and it had nothing to do with what was being transmitted from Papaji. We love India because India is where Supreme Self, True Self, was first recognized consciously, or at least first broadcast in its recognition, and then sent out to the East, and finally to the West. Self has always been known, but it was called self. It was called that which is eternally present and inseparable from you. So we revere it, and we revere the traditions, and they are beautiful, and they are to be revered, and they are rich and ancient, as is Japan's traditions, as is China's, as is Korea's, as is Persia's, as is Israel's, as is England's, as is the Druid culture, the goddess culture, all of them. But the transmission of the truth of beingness is deeper than any of them. If you like to dress as an American, great. If you like to dress as an Indian, great. You like to dress Japanese, great. They have a great style of dressing. You like to dress like a cowboy, great. Like a fairy princess, great. It doesn't matter. It doesn't give you more of who you are, and it doesn't take away from who you are. And so, whatever you have taken on, whatever you have grasped, or whatever you have rejected, in our time together, in this day together, if you will just stop where you are, you don't have to get rid of anything, and you don't have to take on anything else. You just stop right where you are, right here. And for a moment, tell the truth about what has not changed, what has not been diminished or augmented, what is not better or worse, or bigger or smaller, from any circumstance, from any knowledge, from any experience. It's a moment of telling the truth. It's time to tell the truth. The world itself has gotten very small. As a result, we can be disillusioned much quicker than in the past. That's very good. So one of the benefits. So this willingness to tell the truth about disillusionment and to tell the truth about the impulse to then find another illusion that will fill the hole of self-seeking, and tell the truth about the invitation to stop trying to fill that hole with anything else. To meet that right now, as you are, as you imagine yourself to be, as you are. That meeting is our meeting. That meeting which is calling you from inside, calls you from outside also. So that the time we spend together, whether you understand a word or not, there is the possibility of the transmission of that is deeper than any words. These American words, Sanskrit words, Druidic words, foreign words, familiar words, deeper. It is your own heart saying without words who you are. Broadcasting it every moment of every day. If the attention is not on the illusion, the hope, the words, the culture, but rather the source, the depths, where all words melt, all cultures melt, all experiences, sublime and mundane, melt. All religions, all attainment, all victory, all loss. This moment, right now. Broadcasting your nameless name to you. When I was a little girl, I used to pray a lot. Actually, I still pray a lot. But the prayer was really simple, and it was taught to me. You know, it's the now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. It's a sweet little prayer. It's a child's prayer. It's really a prayer about staying alive, and if you die, that you go to heaven. Then God bless Mama, God bless Daddy, God bless Aunt so-and-so, Uncle so-and-so. So I don't know if all of you were taught to pray, but you are praying. A wish is a prayer. A desire is a prayer. Only we call desires worldly, and we make them bad if we're spiritual. If we're worldly, we make prayers absurd. But they're the same. Whatever you are wishing for, whatever you are desiring, you are praying for. You want it. And you're focusing your attention and your energy on getting it either from God or from your focus. But it's a power, it's a huge power power of desire. And it's in everything alive. But as human beings, we can be quite aware of that desire power and where it leads our lives. So as I grew older, my prayers changed, you know. I mean, I might say, now lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord himself to keep. Okay, God, please give me the right boyfriend. Please help me pass this test. Please let me get in this school. Let me get in this sorority. Please make me a good person. Please help me to be a good person. Please let so-and-so like me. Right? Yes, tell the truth now. If you weren't actually saying that in a prayer, you were wishing it, hoping it, praying it before bedtime. So it's very useful right now in this stage of your life, which is really an extraordinary stage, where your attention is turned to liberation, freedom, truth. To really see what it is you are praying for, what it is you are desiring. To be able to tell the truth to yourself about that. And even more important then is to examine what it is that which you are praying for will do for you. Because not all prayers are answered, even though I say often your prayer will be answered. If your prayer is really down to the essence of what it is your lifetime or your lifeline wants, it will be answered. That's for sure. I guarantee it. But if it's up in some tangent of that, so when I was 16, I was praying that a certain boy would like me. And maybe he would and maybe he wouldn't. But what I was really praying for is that I would feel love. And when I can recall a major prayer I had that never got answered. I used to pray that my mother would stop drinking. Pray, I mean really pray. Really put everything in it. But she had a much stronger prayer. This kid, leave me alone. But really what I was praying for, what I was hoping for, what I was desiring, is to feel her love. And so once I was an adult and could realize that she's not going to stop drinking, unless she chooses to, that my prayer is not strong enough for that, I could tell the truth about what it is I wanted there. And what I wanted was her love. It's like, oh, that's much more simple. It's at the root of what the desired behavior would give me. And then if I want her love, well, what's stopping me from her love? Nothing. So it was then not up to her to do anything, it was totally up to me to open to her love as it appeared. Drunk. Drunk. Oh, yes, there's love there also. So that was a major revelation. And it perhaps opened the gates of my mind so that when I could finally pray for a teaching or a teacher that would truly either reveal to me that my search was just a pipe dream, or the truth is true and it's available. That I could actually realize what that prayer, where it was coming from. Now, it took meeting my teacher, which I was praying for, to point me back to the source of that prayer. And the source of that prayer was and is the first glimpse, the first inkling, the first experience of oneself as larger than the body, or the thoughts, or the circumstances. My first inkling that I can recall was horrible. It was a terrible experience. It was an experience of my body disappearing. But in that experience there is the truth. My body disappeared, but I am. And so the rest of my life was spent searching for something, I didn't know what, but something to reflect the truth or the falsity of that truth, that experience. And I, like you, wasted an enormous amount of time. So many avenues, going down so many avenues, so many dead ends, so many repeats. But through it all, like you, there is some force that is seeking itself, that desires itself, that is praying for itself. And whatever is thrown to that force by the mind, images of the self, or a better self, or an enlightened self, or a happy self, or a drunk-free mother self, or popular self, or a student self, whatever. It's not satisfied, they're just thrown back out, not that, not that, not that. That's a neti, not that, not that. Until there is a willingness to just open oneself to the eagle of truth and say, come and take whatever you want. That whatever I've been praying for, whatever I've been wishing as object has not satisfied this longing, this force, this true desire. And I would say that that has occurred for everyone here, or is occurring, or is about to occur. Because you are here. This invitation from my teacher and from his teacher to stop is an invitation to stop, not necessarily praying, but for praying for something. It's not to stop the desire, but to stop trying to feed the desire with something, so that the desire itself can rage in a fire that reveals the living prayer that consumes itself. So I meet you in that. I invite you into that. And I bow to you in that. This is not, it may be formulated as a prayer for escape. But escape is a thing. It's a concept of getting away from, leaving behind, getting to peace or quiet or enlightenment or love. The praying itself is the fire of no escape. Is the eagle that will come in and bring your heart out. We serve each other by gathering together, by our individual and collective willingness, by our courage in letting go of all dogma, and maybe especially the Advaita Vedanta dogma. So that there can be a moment of raw and naked exposure to oneself of what is truly prayed for, what is truly desired. Finally, if no thing is received, if everything is received, what is still prayed for? So of course that means, at least for our time together, putting aside the hope that they will act better, or they will give you what you're looking for, even if the they is some of your many personalities. Giving up the hope that God will descend and pick you up and hold you and put you to sleep. Giving up the hope that you can sleep. That you recognize that we are all here to meet one another as one is. Not for the purpose of staying here forever, but for the purpose of meeting oneself everywhere, forever.